Lucas has grown so much since this time last year in 7th grade, and it has been so much fun for me to get to know him throughout this year as his advisor. Lucas is an accomplished athlete, a dedicated student, a reliable and hilarious friend, and a thoughtful and really spiritual young man. He has emerged as an incredible leader this year, and so it is only fitting that we save him for the very last with what he knows. I know you'll enjoy the speech as much as I have enjoyed hearing it as we've rehearsed for the past couple days. So you ready? All right, Lucas, let's go.
I did not fail the test, I just found 100 ways to do it wrong, Benjamin Franklin. It took me a long time to find a quote. I wanted something original, not too serious, and something that had a meaning. And then I came across this one. I think that it well reflects my life, academic, socially, physically, and in my inner self. I've always loved sports. I've played many, ranging from soccer to basketball, but one has stuck with me since I was little. It was soccer. Soccer is one of, if not my biggest passions, and I've been playing since I was in preschool, for both school and club. Since then, I've played at almost every level possible for my club, from Kentucky Youth League to the highest level in the U.S., which is MLS Next. And I've played in tournaments all across the U.S. Last summer, I went to one of the biggest showcases called MLS Next Cup. School soccer, however, is a love-hate relationship. I don't think we had a winning record until 8th grade. We went undefeated that year until the championship game, winning every game except for one tie. Unfortunately, we did not win the championship, but I had a really good season, scoring 14 goals in 12 games. 8th grade soccer was a fun experience. At one point, probably around 5 years ago, I wanted to quit soccer. That would have been one of the worst decisions of my life. If I had quit, what would I do all day after school? I have 3 or more practices a week, I have games almost every weekend, and apart from that, I have to work out and stay fit on my own time. This gives me a tight schedule and makes it hard to balance homework and other things that I like to do for fun. But I enjoy taking the time out of my day for soccer. If it wasn't for soccer, I would be bored all the time at home. And just playing out on the field takes away all my worries from school and other stuff, and helps me cope with trouble. I also really like watching soccer and supporting my favorite teams. Playing sports has also taught me the great aspect of being a team. I love being part of teams. They are a great way of getting to know people and making friends. Every time I'm with my soccer team, I feel trusted by my teammates. I've also learned to become a leader by being in a team. Being part of a team can be very fun, whether it's messing around at a hotel, at a tournament, or telling jokes during warm-ups. And I can always expect to have a fun time with my soccer team. Another sport I want to talk about is tennis. When I was little, my mom made me play tennis, and I can't say that I loved it, but it was a somewhat good experience. I wasn't very good at it, and I played up with kids 2 years older than me. At one point, I was regularly attending a clinic every Monday with high schoolers while I was in the 6th grade. This made Monday a very dreaded day, but there was no changing whatever my mom said. This endless cycle trended on for almost 2 years, and I even had to play tennis in the summer at Hurstbourne. And it dragged on every year until my mom finally let me quit. Now that I look back on it, tennis wasn't that bad, although I do not want to go back to those lessons. I've also dabbled in other sports such as basketball and golf, but I was not very good at all. Right now, I think that I'm a pretty good student, but things always haven't been like this. If you didn't know, I lived in Mexico for 2 years before moving back to Louisville. When I had been going to school there, things were completely different. And when I moved back to Louisville, I came to collegiate. But little did I know that I was going to struggle in this new environment. See, in Mexico, they were not strict at all about talking and messing around during class. So when I came to collegiate, I thought it would be the same. That was definitely not true. Since the first week of school, I was already getting into trouble. I had met a friend named Ernest, who sadly left after 2nd grade, and we would get into all sorts of trouble together. It was almost like we competed to see who would get in trouble the most. I was averaging around 1 visit to the principal and 1 note home per day, and it got to the point where my parents said that I was going to have to switch schools after 2nd grade, and that's what made me lock in. By the end of the year, I was getting into less and less trouble, and once 3rd grade started, it was almost like I was a different person. And I would say that I have not been such a troublemaker since then, although of course I've had some bumpy moments like in 7th grade where I got suspended twice in the same week. In 2nd grade, I was also introduced to almost everything new academic-wise. All the books were now in English, science had completely different topics, and math was so much more different. I struggled with math a ton, and this did not help me with my bad behavior. I probably caused more trouble during math than any other subject because instead of trying to learn, I would just mess around the whole time. Now I would say that things have definitely changed. I have good grades in every subject, and I'm in honors geometry, which is the most advanced math class, even though it's still a pretty hard class for me. That's definitely a change from second grade. And I think that out of every class, history is my favorite subject. I can't remember anything in history up until fourth grade, which is when we studied the Revolutionary War and the 13 colonies. I don't know what it was, but ever since fourth grade, I enjoyed it every year. Whether it was about Mesopotamia in fifth grade, ancient India in sixth grade, modern world history in seventh grade, or U.S. history in eighth grade. It always kept me engaged and makes me want to learn more. The only thing I don't like about history is Mr. Haas's endless crossword puzzles. When coming to this new school from Mexico, I thought it would be tough to make friends. But it turns out almost all my friends came to school a couple of years after me, so it was a bit easier. But in second grade, my friend group was noticeably smaller than the one I have right now. Hanging out with my school friends is always fun, whether it's having sleepovers or going on school trips. I also have a lot of friends out of school. As I said earlier, I have a lot of friends through soccer. Some are my teammates, and some are even people that I play against. Also, my whole family lives in Argentina, and I have a lot of friends there. I go there once a year every Christmas, so it is hard to relate to them every year. My friends always have some sort of new slang that I have to pretend that I know because I don't want to embarrass myself. Some of my best friends in the U.S. are also friends whose families are from Argentina. We basically grew up together because our parents shared so much in common, and I've been hanging out with them since before I can remember. I love hanging out with them because we can connect through two worlds, which is something different. I also really like spending time with my family. Although we are the only part of my family that lives in the U.S., we get to see the rest of my family every year, whether it's in Argentina or on a vacation in a different place. Over the past 2 years, I've been going to KYA and CUNA conferences. I recently just came back from my CUNA conference about a month ago, and in the fall I went to my first KYA conference. At my first ever conference, which was in seventh grade, I can admit that I just went to spend 3 days away from school with my friends. I barely rose my placard to get called on, and I only went up to speak like twice. And the first time that I went, I messed up insanely badly. This was super embarrassing, and it's probably the reason that I barely went up after that. Now in my recent conferences, I have come to learn that after the first few times you go up, it's not that bad at all. Because of this, I've gone up to speak a lot more and overcome the obstacle of public speaking. As you probably know, my parents and my whole family are from Argentina. Although I was born in Orlando and have lived in the U.S. for most of my life, I feel like I have been mainly raised in a Hispanic culture. The first language I spoke was Spanish. My whole family is fluent in Spanish, and my favorite foods are from Mexico and Argentina. Most of my family in Argentina also lives on a farm, and that makes me unique in many ways. I've lived in many places. I was born in Orlando and then quickly moved back to Miami, which is where my parents were living at the time. Then, after about half a year, we moved to Louisville, and then in 2016, right after my sister was born, we moved to Guadalajara, Mexico for my dad's work. I moved to Mexico when I was fairly young. I think I lived there when I was like 6, 7 years old. And moving to Mexico was not as hard as it sounds. Sure, I wouldn't know anyone at school, but I was already pretty good at speaking Spanish, even though I attended a school where they primarily taught English. Spanish was a secondary class, even though pretty much everyone's first language was Spanish. This made it a bit easier moving from the U.S. Making friends was not hard at that school, because it felt like everyone welcomed me and wanted to be friends with me. Overall, all I can remember are positive experiences from school in Mexico. After 2 years, we moved back to Louisville. I was very excited because I missed my friends in the U.S., but I was also very sad because I really liked Mexico. We lived in an apartment for a couple months until we found a new house and then moved right in after school started. And that's how I ended up here in Louisville again. My parents raised me Catholic, and I have continued my faith in Catholicism up until now. My favorite Bible verse, Jeremiah chapter 29, verse 11, says, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future." This verse has taught me that I need to trust the Lord and His plan will come. Even if I am stressed or things aren't going well, I can trust God that His plan will happen and everything will work out. I was also recently confirmed, which was a very good experience, but I didn't always take religion seriously. I used to hate going to church and beg my parents to let me stay home. And when I did go to church, I messed around the whole time. But ever since I started to take church and my religious education seriously, it has been much more enjoyable each time. Now that I've finished most of my speech, I'm going to say my dedications. I want to dedicate this to my mom, my dad, and Miss Pino. Mom, you're the nicest person in the world. You always try and bring a smile to my face, even when I'm sad, and you always make sure I'm alright. Thank you for buying me stuff, even when I don't need it, and thank you for driving me and picking me up from and to my practices, even when you have a full schedule. Thank you for always being there for me. Dad, you are always pushing me to be the best version of myself, whether it's a sports, school, or social life. You always give me tricks and tips to deal with things. I always enjoy our long road trips to soccer games, and I like to see you in the stands when you're watching me. Thank you for always encouraging me. And Miss Pino, you are the best advisor. You always check in with me, and you also always make sure I'm putting in my best effort at school, including on this project. You're also probably the best English teacher I've ever had. Thank you for making sure I'm on track during school. Throughout my life, I've failed in many things, but I've gotten up each time and tried to do better. As Benjamin Franklin said, I did not fail the test, I just found 100 ways to do it wrong. Thank you all for coming to my speech.